Squirrel chess. That's my invention, or I coined it that way. It is the concept of gathering small advantages, like a squirrel that's gathering nuts for the winter, and then it will have a nice and pleasant winter with enough nuts. So basically, you're collecting small advantages, preferably static advantages, and one of the biggest experts on squirrel chess, even though he doesn't know it's called squirrel chess, is Anatoly Karpov. And we're going to see a great game today against Kamsky from the World Championship match in 1996. Seeing Karpov at work in squirrel chess is just a pure pleasure for me. It's just, this is how I want to play chess. So without further ado, let's get into it. Karpov is black, so we have flipped the board, and he is playing the Nimzo Indian. And this was his main, and he was trying to get to the Hübner variation. After knight e3, he takes on c3 and played d6 and e5. So, but Kamsky had already had good results with knight e2 against Short, and I think we saw one of his games in the isolated queen pawn course, which this game could also be included, but I decided to include it in the squirrel chess section instead. And this will be a series. I did a lecture on squirrel chess at Killer Chess, which is a cool online learning platform championed by, among other, Jakob Ogard and Sam Shankland, and I can recommend it. And I decided that I was not going to talk about squirrel chess for some times after that, so they would have sort of original materials. But now a year has passed, and well, it is my invention, squirrel chess, or I'd coined it that way, so here we go. This is all known stuff. Bishop d6 is probably the best move. We have talked a little bit about this. The idea is to go queen h4. One move you could play here is take, and knight f4. It's not bad. It's definitely a possibility. Knight e4 is also, and this is the main line. Black's idea by pushing the bishop to d6 and then putting to e7 is that he gets better control over the square here. This is a typical isolated queen pawn position, and I can recommend you watch some of the videos on this. It will definitely give good results in your games if you know what's going on in this structure. It's one of the must-known structure in my opinion, and it just gives you such a big range of different openings you can play if you master this structure. a3, important move, taking away this square. Often white would like to make a battery on this diagonal with the queen and the bishop, and a knight to b4 would be most unfortunate, because you really don't want to lose this strong bishop. Bishop c2, and we can see that white, without delay, starts going for this queen bishop battery. Black plays queen c7. That's a cool move. I played this move again, and I think I won a game in 1999 or something with this game. Rook d8, and that's cool also. Just saying, okay, this knight can go wherever it wants, but I can always play knight f6 or g6, so it's not a big deal. Knight g5, novelty. g6, necessary. And this looks a little bit weird. The thing is, often when black has played g6, you really want to put your bishop on this diagonal, because this square down here becomes much weaker after g6. But you could say that something like this looks more natural. But the thing is, maybe you're a little bit worried about this problem. So this could be an interesting position. Black has to play knight f6, and of course e5 could be coming. This is definitely something you should analyze. It looks more natural to go for this with knight e5. Knight goes back, and we see that the rook is like this. So this is of course the weakness. White covers the pawn, and of course due to the knight and the bishop, the knight is a bit annoying here for black because he cannot really get rid of it without bad things happening, something landing hard, maybe on e6 already. So but this is of course their plan, just going to g7 and having a very solid structure at the same time where the bishop on g7 is an optimal piece, both defending the king and attacking white's weak spot, which is here. And queen comes to the rescue. Plan is simple. Black would love to go something like this move, this move, this move, this move, having super development, this totally under control, and this knight is definitely misplaced, and white's attack is not really going anywhere. Usually white should get something going here, something going maybe sometimes, very rarely, on the queen side, or he should be able to play this move, which is really what he would like to do in a lot of situations after g6, to sort of get this weakness out in the open. But it's not possible here due to the rook on d8. And here white definitely makes a mistake. He should probably go back with the knight to f3 and just say, okay, nothing serious going on here. You could also go rook c1. Even though the rooks usually belongs on d squares, you could also say that the rook maybe belongs on e8 and not d8. But rook c1 would probably be my choice, just to avoid the b6 move. Instead, he made an instructive mistake, Kamsky here. He played this move, and that's definitely a mistake, because black has a strong move, knight d5. And the thing is, in this situation, white's position simply becomes too loose if you lose the black squared bishop. In general, the knights are not worse than the bishops in isolated queen pawn position, but right here, well, we will have a transformation, and then it is worse because suddenly you're missing a bishop. So he took here with the idea to if the rook takes back, for instance, something like this, and then followed by d5 with a strong initiative. And this is a typical white thing. Even though you don't have the white squared bishop, you will still have a lot of attacking chances here, and probably it's already a disaster for black. So, but this move, oops, no more attack, and well, we got the bishop pair for nothing. So that's, in squirrel chess, that's one knot. We just got there, right here, one knot. How many more do we need to win? We don't know. We keep gathering them until we win. That's more or less. He goes back. Maybe you should take on e7. Take here, getting rid of the queens. No more attack for you, sir. And after something like this, this is a really annoying move with a clear advantage for black. Definitely clear advantage for black. So he takes with the pawn, leaving a weakness here, and leaving all these squares on the queen side very weak, all the white squares. So that's knot number 2. So we are having 2 knots. Okay, so how do you play this kind of position? You should pause the video now and try to find the candidate moves. What should black do in this position strategically? This is Karpov at his finest. This is what he really does. This is the man, the boa constrictor, ready to swamp the little mouse. And how does he do that? Well, he starts by playing. Did you pause it and start it again? Okay. This move, of course. What does that do? Well, first of all, the black squares is the only place where white has some influence at the moment, and you just take away this square, you take away this square, but you also make this bishop vulnerable. You get ready to roll with the pawns. This is not weakening at all because there's not gonna be any attack. If there were two rooks on the 7th rank, then f6 would be a very big mistake. Or if there was a knight on e4, you could argue that white will get some initiative. But here, black has everything under control, and he just takes more squares, restricting the bishop in good old-fashioned way. And bishop comes out. It has white squares, and it's already nice for and white try to get some control over the white squares. H5, and here maybe you should go nice c3, g3 or something, and you might have some chances to equalize the game. You could play something like this, but then you're setting yourself up for g5 next, so that's also not fantastic. But this is definitely a mistake. White is simply not paying attention. One of the things you have to notice here is in some variations, this is a huge problem. It can both land here, and just exploiting those white squares. So what to play here? g5. Oh yeah. Putting it on black. We are trying to dominate on the white squares, so we're putting the pawns on black. Notice that. And again, and we are just knowing that this guy here has a bright future, will always have something to attack. Trying to plug the holes here, and yeah, you can understand that. Maybe the best move here. There's also a threat here by this move and some initiative. So Karpov immediately starts. Maybe he should have put it on a black square. I don't know. He plays this move. It cannot be that bad. And white goes on, trying to see if he can. Well, there's no. This could be a weakness. This could be a weakness, but at the moment it's not totally clear. But the thing is, black has a lot of patience here, so he's just very, very focused on not giving any of his advantage away. So, and this is how you should think when you're playing squirrel chess. Just don't give anything away. Just keep gathering nuts, and one day you'll have not enough nuts to win. So that's the strategy. Keep making good moves. Here, well, I think Kamsky was probably a little bit disappointed with the way the game was going. He played this move, which more or less make no sense. But okay, he might have some idea here. Maybe he's hoping to get this in. But that is not allowed. b5, and here white plays, and b5 is nice. Just controlling the white squares, avoiding these things, getting ready for this, and there are some serious problems on the white squares, and this guy down here is a major weakness. It's just totally out of the game. Something like this could be met by b4, but I think just this move is also very strong. Just jumping in here, or the knight can't move, so you're threatening to take and play knight b3, winning the exchange, and black's position is just very superior. But b4 is of course not a bad move either. Getting ready for knight c5 maybe, and b4. I like that move. Just taking more space, just gathering space, like nuts. You have to do something. If you take it, you take back with the knight, and an invasion is coming. It will probably lead to the winning of this pawn at some point. So taking is not very nice. So keeping the position close with the knight seems rather nice, but it also gives black great control. And this is typical Karpov. He's using his tactics to calculate everything to avoid counterplay. Most players use tactics to find something, to win something, to do something. But for Karpov, it's often to avoid something, to prevent counterplay, to make sure that the opponent's ideas just runs into tactical things. And here, very typical Karpov move, just to make sure nothing bad happens, he just covers this pawn, get the king out of the way. There's no checks here, no knight d6 or whatever, or rook c7. And you could say knight c5, but then knight a5 is really a problem. This knight will just come to c4, and it's just it's a disaster. It can go to b2 and d3 and so on. So it's Kamsky tries to as we see, this knight was completely dominated here. It's also, you could also call that a knot. So it's trying to get out. Okay, and Karpov is not a type that does not create threats when he can threat, because even if the knight gets to this better square, it will still not do anything. So here, and it creates a threat. Bishop c2, winning material, and you probably have to do something here. Notice that the knight is excellent here because it covers the rook. So something like take, then you still have bishop c2 winning material. So knight c5 makes sense, but it's not like it's an active move. It's more like a desperate move. So black just keep on gathering advantages. At the moment, the knight cannot really move due to something like bishop c2, so and winning the a pawn. So why not just play this move, covering the pawn and getting ready for this? And white will have a problem here, and I don't know what he should do. Bishop c2 is always a problem, and winning material. So Jack was just waiting, and here comes b3, just accepting, okay, I'm losing a pawn, but then I will put my knight on d4 and I'll be fine. And Karpov is not going to harvest the nuts just yet. He's waiting. Here comes a5, very typical Karpov. White cannot do anything, so why just not wait until we have the optimal solution? Why cannot even improve his position? And there comes a bishop in here, making sure that that this was allowed with the king. If we see this move, we see that that this threat is a problem. So for example, something like this runs into this intermediate move, which is a very typical Karpovian tactics. So king d2, getting to the c file where bad things about to happen. Okay, no more. But we just noticed that he got his bishop to this active post where it could be turned into a Pac-Man that will just eat the pawns on the king side. So now it's time to harvest when the knight cannot jump into d4 without losing a lot of material. So this is, of course, disastrous. There's this problem. You have to do this and this. Okay, and we see that due to gathering nuts, black has won a pawn, but white can hope that the case here with the opposite colored bishop gives him some drawing chances. His big problem is that all the pawns are weak or on either side, and the king cannot be on both sides. So we have weaknesses here, and here. And even worse thing is when one of them falls, they probably will fall both of them because there's nothing to defend. f5. Yeah, and here we have a typical situation of transformation of advantages. How do you move forward here? You would probably look at something like take. The thing is, it's a little bit annoying here that this is always threatening, and when it's gone, the b4 will also gone. So white just needs an active king to be able to draw if you take on f3. So instead, Karpov sees something and sort of exchange his advantage into another advantage. d4. This pawn was not going to be anything but a weakness anyway, so why not get rid of it? Taking with the knight is not very funny. Just these pawn on the king side is just gonna run down. Just play bishop d2, f4, a3, and so on. Well, I can show you something like this. Go something like this. Boop. And with this coming and this coming. So that's not much fun there. It's gonna and this guy is a monster, just stopping everything. It will take all the pawns a long way to get to b7 while being covered to threaten anything. Anyway, so take f4. Thinking in the right way, blocking the bishop's retreat, getting ready for serious stuff here. And it's a very typical Karpov that he's very good at sensing when opposite colored bishops are won and when they are just drawn. And here he finds it excellently. We see that this, of course, is a serious problem for white. We cannot cover it, but the knight, because then this is a serious problem. So he goes to cover g2, this pawn, and gives up b3 in order to go into a opposite colored bishop ending he hopes is a draw. Unfortunately for Kamsky, who I think has defended pretty well, considering the way he was outplayed throughout the game. But it's just not good enough. This was, of course, the idea. Take. And so, once again, we have a transformation. We have an opposite colored bishop ending with a weak pawn here, a strong pass pawn here, which will limit the bishop to be on this diagonal. We have this one here that easily attacks g2 and is threatening for the king to go all the way down here. So this is totally winning. The white king both have to guard d2 and c2, and that's a little bit too far apart. And this is, yeah, and Karpov have good time. It's coming. Check. And here, well, you can either let the king through, or you can lose the allow the king has to go that way, but then just this move wins, and black is assured to make an extra pass pawn. Having this one will be totally under control, while this pawn and this pawn will be too far apart for white to do anything about it. And well, this of course is obviously winning. Makes sense. And g4 is the simplest way. And here Kamsky resigned. The black will simply play this move and this move, covering the pawn, winning the bishop, then going back, putting white into Zugzwang and winning the game. So this was squirrel chess at its finest, gathering small advantages, being patient, just keep improving your position, keep restricting the opponent's forces, waiting, not taking material immediately, just waiting, keep improving, and finally white is just laid to rest in his bed. An impressive performance by Karpov and the way I would like to play chess. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this introduction to Squirrel chess and hope to see you back on GM Talks in another time.